Yeah, what's interesting about you, besides your age, I'm feeling very old here, is that, you know, when most of you came into the shipping industry, correct me if I'm wrong, it was in an upcycle, because you're not that old, okay? No. It was in an upcycle. And now we've been very, very hard hit. And so for those of you who were in the business during this downturn, a very severe downturn, it has in a sense been trial by fire. You know, what have you taken away from that? Because one of the things you talked about in your opening remarks, Konstantinos, is the need to be disciplined about cash.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose when you have to invest, you don't have to put all your money into something. I mean, you have to do it very gradually and very conservatively. And another thing that we have learned from this crisis in our company is that you need to have many banking relationships. You cannot depend on just one bank, although you might have a wonderful relationship with one bank. You need to have many banks because you don't know if these banks, when you'll need them, whether they'll be there. And it might not be their problem, it might be the country's problem, like in Greece, where there is a big problem, a big crisis, and the banks cannot lend even if they would like to.
Well, as Torolov said in his opening remarks, you know, you have to start going to those Christmas parties that the banks are throwing if you want to keep your relationships good. We have to start doing that again. Leon. Yeah.
The future belongs to the ones who prepare for it. So the prudent owners were the ones who sold off, you know, all their vessels. They conserved some cash. They created a war chest. Because we always knew that shipping is a cyclical business. And the sun was not always going to shine. So the people who took some cover, they time-chartered vessels. They did business with good counterparties. Were the ones that are going to survive, and the ones that are going to weather out the storm and are going to be ready for the next boom in the next decade.
One of the things, I was sitting next to somebody on the plane on the way up, and I asked him, he's in the shipping industry, he's come here, and I asked him, I said, you know, what did the shipping industry learn from the downturn? And he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, I don't know if that rings true for you or not, but what do you feel they have learned, or do you really think they've learned anything?
I think we've definitely learned something, especially from the restructuring of Golden Ocean, for example, that we need to be more cautious when it comes to ordering new ships, and that in shipping it's also good to be diversified.
Okay. Thomas?
I think it's a big matter of discipline. I think regardless of how many experiences you've had, when you're, say, experiencing an upturn as you did in that cycle from, say, mid-2000 up to 2008, everyone get somewhat colored about that situation, and I think you're inclined to take much more risk, even though if you've experienced downturns before. So I think to have that discipline is really a question. Of course, you learn. Everyone learns. You have focus on different things.
Saravana?
I'm going to take a slightly different view. I think it's the nature of the industry. We boom and we bust. We're not going to learn our lessons, probably because we're young, we're quite optimistic, but experience would tell you that shipping is quite huge. You can't control everybody in the industry. I would, of course, like to speak for ourselves and say that we have to be more disciplined, but it's the nature of the industry. And I learned that the hard way. You mentioned, Todd, that some of the people here have probably seen the good times in shipping. I never went to the nice parties in shipping. I came in the middle of 2008, and that's when the crisis started. And I got the shock of my life when people said, charter parties, we don't really read them, we just sign them. And I think what the crisis has really taught us about is, yes, you have to be cautious, but you can't really build a business model that is extremely cautious. You will grow at 8–10%. A year, but you know, coming from a private equity mindset, we can't afford that. What we plan for is sort of proactive contingency planning, and contingency planning is all about conflict resolution. You can't really escape conflict, but when the problem does arrive, do you have good relationships with the bank? Have you actually gone and seen your charterer in the last 1 year? Have you gone and visited him? Are you aware of the financial health of your counterparties? These are the sort of things that we have to look for, because in shipping it's inevitable. And with cycles lasting 7 years, you can't blame people for forgetting and doing the same mistakes again and again.